Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Give Me God of War video walkthrough, and we're moving through the next sequence of the game up until the boss fight, Brenner, Daudi. So, depending on how you performed in your previous environment, will depend on whether or not you want to refill on the HP, but the one habit you want to get into in this game is smashing everything, exploring every crevice, and trying to find just about everything that you can. Especially early on. Early on in this game, it can take you a while to really get moving. So, a couple of things that can help you do this, especially when it comes to experience. The first thing is, if you find any equipment or anything that you can apply to Kratos that increases your luck, it's going to increase the amount of experience that you gain. This is going to enable you to get the abilities that you're going to want to use. Abilities that are going to make the fights a lot less tedious and a lot more interesting for you. And just all whole make you more viable at the game. Things to get experience from are the readings, are finding the items, smashing Odin's Ravens, things of that nature. Odin's Ravens actually give you a ton of experience for early game, when you consider that getting the first 500 experience in this game can be quite grueling, so everything does add up, and it's all coming towards a tally that is you getting better at the game and Kratos being more capable in your hands. And you will see a difference. Like, watch this. Break the Raven. That gave me 113 experience. At this moment in time, leveling up takes anywhere between 500 and 1,000 to get the abilities that I want. That's 1/10 of what we need to get a new ability that could make a massive difference. So that's why you really want to be doing this, unless you're doing some kind of challenge run or you're confident in your abilities. And speaking of abilities, you just saw just then, I've purchased the holding R1 with the Leviathan axe, which enables Kratos to throw it out and it spins and it hits people. The reason I've done this is twofold. First, it can be really good at adding permafrost to your axe and enabling you to scatter frost around. And secondly, if you put somebody against the wall with it and you hit them just right, it can be hitting them, they can be hitting the wall, and you can use Atreus' arrows. It can build a lot of stun. But it's not necessary. It's one of those upgrades that you can completely live without. I just picked it up because I'm looking to mess around with moves that I'm not as familiar with. But once you speak to Brock, you're going to be put into an encounter here because he's going to upgrade your axe, and you're going to notice that it does a little bit more damage. You'll be assailed by one of the heavier draugrs, and then there will be these projectile draugrs just sitting over on this corner. The reason I fought that dude the way I did was to dodge the inevitable projectile spam these guys are going to be giving me. And then from this moment onwards, because Atreus isn't with me, he's just watching at this point, I'm going to be trying to get rid of these guys as efficiently as I can without getting hit. And it's unfortunate that we don't have the 3,000 experience points that it costs to buy the parry that reflects the projectiles, but to get to it you have to spend like 3,000 experience points anyway, so it's quite an expensive endeavour. But it would make this really effortless and you would never have to worry about catching one of these projectiles. But as it stands, I'm just going to freeze them, stun them, hit them with these awesome moves. Listen to the great sound effects of the chinking and the breaking and the shattering and the icing. And it's just kind of ridiculous at times, this game. You forget just how ridiculous certain parts of it can be. But it must be said, I do think that the patches that they did to the difficulty are welcome additions. When I was playing it at launch, I didn't really notice any of the changes, and the reason for that is because I didn't download the damn patches. So I was actually mocking the changes on my stream, which is unfair on the developers, because I do feel a difference now. I definitively feel a difference, which is not to be mistaken with definitely, which some people do, but there is a definitive difference. And there's moments where you kind of go, I didn't get this much better at the game definitely changed. So I think some of the tweaking and some of the nuancing that they've adjusted has really made Give Me God of War a much more enjoyable difficulty in a lot of ways. Does it still have a lot of cardinal sins and a lot of things that frustrate? Definitely. But in a few areas, it's definitely much closer to where I think it should be. So I have to give them major props for that, because I definitely felt it the other day when I was fighting in Alfheim. Because my first adventure in Alfheim against the Dark Elves was a miserable time. I really did not like the enemy. I didn't like how they fought. I didn't like how cowardly they were. They were incredibly resilient, incredibly cowardly, and incredibly dangerous. And I went in yesterday recording this walkthrough, and I dunked them. And admittedly, I've come a long way since those early moments of my first playthrough, but I don't think I've come that far. I really do think that they've tweaked them in ways to make them a bit more enjoyable to encounter, so credit where it's due. But coming down here is going to open up a shortcut back to this bottom area. A lot of the environments in this God of War enable you to loop back to where you were, because there's a lot of Metroidvanian aspects that enable you to come back with new abilities and uncover new treasures. And all of this is going to add to the enrichment of the game and your enjoyment and build Kratos and Atreyu and all that good stuff. Once again, for people who might be wondering, I'm completely ignoring the Narnia chests. I will be beating the game with base HP and base Rage bar. I'm not doing that to, show off or prove myself or anything. It's just to challenge. It's 100% to make me a better player by the end of the walkthrough. Because I really want to improve at this game. And in my opinion, the only true way to improve at anything is to push yourself. So, I recommend you do it, I recommend myself to do it, and that's exactly what you're going to be watching. And so far, it's paid me dividends. For people who know the duration of the game, I've recorded the walkthrough up to the dragon fight. I've just beat the dragon. And it's took ages. It's took 2 days of recording. Normally, I'm done within 6 hours of recording, but because of the nature of this God of War, that just simply isn't the case. This game is entirely unskippable. I'm trimming out a bunch of stuff, as you've noticed. I'm trying to streamline this experience as best I can. So the only things that you watch are moments where I'm playing and moments where you need my help to fight and things. But for the most, when I'm recording, I can't just get rid of those. They have to happen. It's a game that is entirely unskippable. So, for instance, perhaps an hour or two of gameplay generally come with an hour or two of downtime that you cannot skip. And it leads to these very, very long sessions of a game that feels incredibly lengthy, even if it's not. Like, I think if you condensed exactly what you have to do together, and you skipped all the moments where Kratos and the boy are walking around slowly and talking and you can't really manipulate the world, it would be a considerably shorter game. You'd probably be looking at like a 6-hour campaign, but that's just not how the entire game is built. It's structured around this framing device of this narrative that you can't get away from, and I'm enjoying it. I am. I'm on my second time now. I'm really enjoying the narrative because, of course, I have the full breadth of the story now, so I'm seeing some of the subtleties, I'm seeing some things that I've forgotten. Speaking of, you can kick the tire into these spikes, and it does a little bit of damage, which is kind of the game to take pity on us, isn't it? But yeah, those guys have insane HP, so do whatever you wish with them. Maybe even bait them back across onto the platform just so you can drop it on them, because that will kill them instantly, which is a really, really good strategy, and I'm going to keep using it if you're wondering. You'll hear them spawn as well. It's the noise that signifies the spawn. There it was, just then. Did you hear it? That's how I know where the enemies are coming from, if you're wondering. And he's just going to chuck. And he's on his own, so we should be able to freeze him. And oh no, because he's elite now, he's powered up, so freezing's not going to work. There are some strange things that happen in this game when it comes to the relationship between the elites and what they should and shouldn't do. So, as I read in a previous video, the differences of the difficulty have given the enemies interesting immunities to certain things. And one of those immunities is kind of hilarious, because you can kind of tell that the game is supposed to function a certain way and do a certain thing, but the elites won't let it happen. So instead you get these weird things that happen. And one of them is a pinning mechanic. If you pin one of the Draugrs to a wall with the axe, it's an instant kill on a lot of difficulties, but this, I think. And because it doesn't happen that much on this difficulty, I don't really know too much about that mechanic. So I can't really, tell you about it, but what I can tell you is I've seen instances of it happening on this difficulty by accident, or by my own movements, or maybe through providence, I'm not entirely sure. But there are times when the engine can't keep up with what's happening, and it gives you these properties that it's not meant to give you. And I'm trying to figure out why it does this. And one example was, an elite was jumping towards me, and I threw the axe to try and stun him, and it ended up embedding him to the wall. He had about 70% of his life, and it killed him instantly. And I don't know why it did that. It did this weird pin mechanic that the footnotes tell us doesn't really happen on this game, on this difficulty, and is less susceptible to happen. And then when I tried to repeat it, I couldn't get it to work. So it seems like something in the game kind of got confused and gave me a free kill. It's going to happen as well later on in the Lake of the Nine, because I'm going to go to the Thor statue, and I'm going to throw my axe at a dude, he's going to fall off a ledge, and he's going to instantly die. And I think he has purple life, which means he's a very tricky combatant. And he shouldn't have died, and I don't know why he did. And there's another instance of this happening during my live stream, where somebody got knocked down, and we believe they went through the graphics, and it killed them with collision. But I don't know. And it's one of the things that I wish I did know, but at the moment nobody really knows. Outside of the official walkthroughs that you can buy that can give you more information, no one's been able to data mine the game and understand, you know, all the nuance and everything. So there are these moments where weird things happen. But when you are looking for these moments, you can stumble upon really, really good things. And the first of those that I want to share with you to help you in your journey is knowing that Atreus is absolutely incredible. Atreus is so powerful, but you can't control him, and that's awkward. But if you let him do what he can do, he can really augment your adventure. And I'm going to be prefacing him first over myself, because I have the abilities now that I kind of want. And the abilities that I'm going to go for, just to give you an idea, is I'm going to go for the 2 permafrost upgrades, just so that every time I hit people, I can be building a potential status effect. I'm going to be going, obviously, for the Executioner's Cleave. It's my favourite move in the game for utility. It's really powerful. I'm going to be going for the standard parries and then the projectile parries, because they give you space, they give you tools and options that you need, and I just think that they're very, very good. I'm probably going to get the combo, which is the 3 R1s into the R2, which does the big ground impact, because it's good for cancelling and such like that. I have bought the precision throw. I'm going to get the charge throw for killing ancients, because it's one of the best ways of doing that. It's really, really useful. But other than that, that's the only real stuff that I'm going to be looking into. Of course, you've already seen me buy the stunning moves for the fist. So the spinning fist when you hold R1 that hits them with a shield, that is incredibly valuable. You can use that against the Revenants, and it's terrific. Additionally, the charge R2, where he spins with the shield and then he punches the shield, that is another invaluable tool for knocking people off. And then through extension of that moveset, if you get the running shield bash, that's great at knocking people off as well. And if you can combine it with freezing them with the Leviathan and then hitting them with that, not only can you shatter them and kill them instantly, but you can knock them off the edges, you can knock them into walls, you can do a lot of great things. They're pretty much the movesets that I'm going to be upgrading. I'm not going to put a single point into Rage, because I'm going to be avoiding using it as much as I can. So that's kind of the path that Kratos is going to take, and a lot of that I've already got. And that's good news, because it makes you more capable. So everything else is going to be prefaced towards, of course, the boy. Later on, when we get the blades, I'm going to be upgrading those guys a lot, but at that point we will have enough experience to not have to care too much. So upgrading Atreus is incredibly important. I'm going to continue this discussion in the next video, guys, because we have to talk about Mr. Brenner here. So this is a shit boss. It's a palette swapped troll, and he's just as easy as the first one, if not easier, but he has this horde of knobheads who throw projectiles at you, and their projectiles are miracle grenades. They can hit you when you're sprinting, they can throw it where you're going to be, they can throw it where you were and you evade thinking it's going to hit you and you evade into it. There's a whole host of nightmares that can happen with these little shitbangers, and there's at least 6 of them. So my strategy here is to use the Executioner Cleave on this guy, bait him to throw the fire, and then run past the fire, hit his leg with the Executioner's Cleave. If he taunts, hit him again with it. If he doesn't, back up and let him do it again. And then when the bad guys turn up, divide and conquer. The boss does not damage me here, guys, because he's easy, but I'm going to get hit by one of the scragglers, so not my favourite thing about this encounter. I wanted to do it no damage. I can do it no damage, but I just didn't want to do this tedious fight too much. And hopefully seeing me take a few hits along this walkthrough will give you hope that, you know, it's not just my ability to play that's making the game easier. It's also my strategies, and hopefully your abilities will be higher than mine, and then with my strategies you'll have ultimate success, right? But the geometry's set up in such a way that we can have a pretty good advantage here. One of the things that bugs me though about this game is that anything that has a projectile, especially the trolls, it has a tendency of being able to go through geometry. The ice one is terrible for it, but there is an instance where when Brenner was throwing the fire and I was on the other side of that like bunch of rocks, and they still hit me. So you need to be very conscious of the threat rings on Kratos' body, to keep you in advantage. I should have kicked him then against the giant. This is my mistake. Watch this. How the fuck did he recover and then throw that at me perfectly? God, I was so mad in that moment. And it poisoned me no less. So they're throwing AoE poison grenades, the little shits, and then he levels up. Frustrating, right? But what can you do? At least the boss doesn't touch me. If that worked like it should, that should have been an impact off the wall. That was a rock he hit then. They need to work on that detection. It's very strange. The lava that he casts off, it looks really nice. I'm a big fan of that particulate. So there's his taunt. You can charge axe him for that. One thing I didn't realise with the trolls at this moment is that whenever they taunt, if you are within range, you can get a free Executioner's Cleave. And there's a troll later on where I've got a really fun pattern where you can hit him twice with Executioner's Cleaves and then do both runic attacks, and then if he taunts afterwards, get a third Executioner's Cleave. So you, like just then, that is 100% safe to do an Executioner's Cleave when he does that move. But instead I'm playing it a little safe here. Just hitting him with the old axe. And my axe doesn't do as much damage as it could do. But what can you do, right? Early game, no damage. And here's his spinny move, so prepare to move away from it. Don't get stuck on the pot either. That could have been catastrophe just then. A few people might wonder, why don't I get health during a fight? Healing and me don't get along. I do it when I have to, and I do like a full life bar, but during a fight, I try not to do it unless I'm not confident in my ability to do the fight. So you might have noticed on some of those early, really tricky fights when we didn't have any moves, that I was healing during those, but when it comes down to something like this, I would rather die than heal. As much as I really don't like this fight, thanks to those douchebags, that's just kind of who I am. I'm a very stubborn, proud player in a lot of ways, and some people might not understand that, but trust me when I say, guys, it will make you better at the game. But there goes Brenner, same execution as before. Fun to see though, it's a nice animation. I just wish there was maybe 2 or 3 of them to vary it up, because you're going to fight a lot of those enemies and he's going to kill them the exact same way. But that's a God of War staple, so I can't complain about that. Thank you for watching, you take care now.